اتبعه إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد. Today we're going over Surat Al-Ikhlaas. Okay, but before we do, I'm just making the same point that we were making earlier, that this skeleton that we have here is for a purpose. Nothing here, no words in these poems are extraneous or extra. You know, everything here is for a purpose. And if you only thing you're being asked to do at this point is memorize. It's memorize. That's all you have to do. Is memorize the poem, come to class, ready. You have, if you memorize and if you continuously memorize and rememorize and read these poems over and over again, when you get to the end, you will be so strong in this information, you will be able to give the class. You will be able to tell anybody about every surah in the Quran. You will be able to open the Quran and say, you know what, this is a Medini surah. This is a Meccan ayah inside a Medini surah. Because of the style of the ayah. Because you know all the ayah that are, and all the prerequisites for something to be a Meccan ayah or a Medini ayah. Right? But it won't stay unless you memorize. You can't carry around, you know, pages all the time saying, well, let me explain this to you, looking at that. That's not going to help. Okay, so let me get started here. I'm going to erase this right here. Thank you. Did you make copies of that? The machine broke down. Okay, I'll write it on the board then, okay? Everybody, we're experiencing technical difficulties with the computers. So we're going to have to go back to the old school way of writing down, okay? So we're doing Surat Al-Ikhlaas, okay? Surat Al-Ikhlaas. Everybody say that. Ikhlaas, okay? Ikhlaas. Okay? And it means complete loyalty. Complete loyalty. That's what Ikhlaas means. Okay? And it goes about Ikhlaas or loyalty. All four ayah sign off with D. 1/3 Quran, it's equally a Meccan or Al-Madani. $112 its place to be the answer for the mushrikeen. Okay. In 12 surah, there's ikhtilaf. Somebody, you guys should recite this with me, right? After you read. What we say before? In 12 surah, there's ikhtilaf amongst the senior scholar staff. In Fatiha, Falaq nas, Mutaffifin, and then? Okay. Rahmanu, Ra'adul Bayyina, At-Taghabun, Al-Zalzala, Al-Qadaru, along with Saf. No one's word is deemed enough. In 12 surah, there's ikhtilaf. In 12 surah in the Quran, there's ikhtilaf. What does ikhtilaf mean? Ikhtilaf means difference of opinion. There's difference of opinion whether these 12 surah are Meccan surah or Medinan surah. No scholar from the senior scholars agree whether these surah are Meccan or Medinan. And what are those surah? In Fatiha, Falaq, and Nas, Mutaffifin, and then? So we went over first Al-Fatiha. Then we did what? Falaq, and then we did? Then we did Mutaffifin, and now what we're doing? And what are we going to do next week? Inshallah. Ar-Rahman. So we know where we're going and why we're doing these first. to nuthabbitu al-nuqta fi dhuhuniha. So to make it clear in our minds, the 12 surah that there's ikhtilaf. We'll know without doubt those 12 surah because we started off with those 12 surah. Okay? And so what does it say here? It says about ikhlas or loyalty, all 4 ayahs sign off with D. 1/3 Quran, it's equally a Meccan or al-Madani. 112, it's placed to be the answer for the mushrikeen. Okay, here, the author says al-Ikhlaas is complete loyalty. That's how he defines it, complete loyalty. One of the reasons, if you look at the word Ikhlaas, we go here, it's on the scale of another word that we're so familiar with. If you know, what is this word? Islam. Ikhlaas. You see, the scale of the word is exactly the same. They both denote concepts. What is Islam? What is Islam? You're the Muslims. Total submission, right? Total surrender. Total surrender. That's what this is. The idea, total submission, to give up. That's what Islam is. Ikhlaas denotes complete and total loyalty. We say sincerity, and that's from another angle. If you use the word in another type of sentence, you might say sincerity. But here, when it's dealing as a concept, it denotes loyalty. To be completely and totally honest and loyal to Allah. That allegiance that is pure and solely for Allah, we call it in English loyalty, integrity. But integrity is from one angle. Loyalty encompasses all of that purity. And it encompasses that sincerity also. Excuse me? Excuse me? Fidelity. Or fidelity, I don't know fealty. I don't know what that word is. But that word, complete loyalty. Okay, that's that complete loyalty. So here we have complete and total loyalty. Okay? That's when someone puts Allah before everything else, even themselves. They're not loyal to anybody or anything before Allah. Okay? That's where their allegiance totally goes. So then he says, about Ikhlaas, and this is a line that goes above it, about Ikhlaas or loyalty. So now we go back, Tafsir 101 is what we're going to do. We're going to break each surah down for every one of you from whence it came, right? Whence it came, its length, its name, its placement, and it's what it claims. So let's look and see if we can find that. About Ikhlaas, that's the name, or loyalty. So in Arabic, it is Ikhlaas, right? And in English, it is loyalty. About Ikhlaas or loyalty, all 4 ayah. Has 4 ayah. So what's the length of it? It's 4 ayah. Sign off with D. What is it talking about? Sign off with D. Recite Surat Al-Ikhlaas. Shaitan Rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Ahad. Samad. Lam yalid wa lam yulad. وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٌ. Each end of the ayah ends with the sound what? The del sound or the D sound in English. Right? We call this the qalqala. Whenever you practice tajweed, they give you this surah to practice that qalqala or that bouncing sound at the end of the surah. Allahu Ahad. So every one of the ayah, all 4 ayahs sign off with D. It's just familiarizing yourself with the surah. 1/3 Quran. Okay, so it claims to be 1/3 of the Quran. The Prophet ﷺ, actually a man came to the Prophet ﷺ after watching another man reciting the Quran and repeating this surah over and over again. The next day he went to the Prophet ﷺ and mentioned that to him. And it was as if the man thought, well, he was belittling it, saying, why is he reciting this short surah, reciting it over and over again, or saying something like that? So the Prophet ﷺ said what could mean, I swear by the one whose soul is my, in whose hand is my soul, that لَتَعْدُلُ ثُلُثُ الْقُرْآنِ. It is equal to 1/3 of the Quran. So Surat Al-Ikhlaas is equal to 1/3 Quran. That hadith is in Sahih Al-Bukhari. Okay? So it's equal to 1/3 of the Quran. A Meccan or Al-Madani. This is a Meccan surah or Al-Madani. Why did the author put it like that? A Meccan or Al-Madani?
Because some of them say Meccan.
Because Ibn Abbas said it was, let's say, Meccan, and Ibn Mas'ud said it was Madini, and then some of the scholars followed that one, and some of the scholars, so there's ikhtilaf about that. So should we be concerned too much about it? We say what they said. Some say it's Meccan, some say it's Medina. Okay? So here we have it came down in Mecca or Medina. There's ikhtilaf. Okay? So 112, its place to be. So its placement is the 112th surah, right? The answer for the mushrikeen. What does it mean here? The answer.
The question from the mushrik, where this surah, where mushrik, this Allah made of what?
No, they ask who is the Lord.
Because it identifies, gives you a template for identification who God is, who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. It makes clear who Allah is. The only one self-sufficient.
Now, these two were more correct. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, this surah represents Allah.
Okay, let me clarify. The mushrikun came to the Prophet ﷺ in Sahih Al-Bukhari, and they said to him, and in the Tafsir of Ibn Kathir, and they said to the Prophet ﷺ, the Jews say, Uzair ibn Allah, that Uzair is the son of Allah. And the Nasara, the Christians say, Isa ibn Allah, that Isa is the son of God also. And the mushrik, the Majus, the Zoroastrians, worship, Zoroastrians, those are the people who worship the sun. They said they worship the sun and the moon. Okay, this is Majus. And the mushrikun, they have their idols. Tell us about your God. Give us the lineage of your God. What you're gonna, you coming with this new God, what's the deal with him? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Qul, say, respond to them, Huwa Allahu ahad. And huwa, here at the beginning of the surah, huwa, the ulama say that this denotes that this is something that was already mentioned. Like when you say him or it, you're only talking about something that was previously referenced. You understand what I mean? I can't talk about him unless I already mentioned who him was. Unless you ask me, you say, let's say for instance, someone says, where's your son? Ya Aba Tawba, where's your son Ayyub? I say, he's at home. If I start off the sentence, he's at home, that word he represents something that we already know about. So by saying huwa at the beginning of the surah, it shows that this is a response, that this was the answer to the mushrikeen. And that's how the ulama describe it in Ahkam al-Quran, that this is the response to the mushrikeen when they came and they asked the Prophet ﷺ, give us the lineage of your God. Okay? So this right here gives you something of the tafsir of it, and we're going to go through the surah again right now. Could you get the board for me, please? Do I have any questions about this? At this point, you go ahead.
Yeah, to answer the question of the mushrikeen was to identify for them in no uncertain terms who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. That, this is what he is when he comes. He is eternal, absolute, he does not beget, nor is he begotten. And it gives a description, a definite description and a template. That's what I was trying to say, by which to answer that question, this is who Allah is.
Well, the ulama go on to say that this is not the first time this happened to a prophet. You see, Fir'aun said to Musa, وَمَنْ رَبُّ الْعَالَمِينَ, who is this Lord of the worlds? And Musa responded by saying, رَبُّ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا. He says, he didn't go on and say anything but to describe Allah. Because we can only speak about Allah from what we know about, from the sifat of Allah. So this surah is considered sifatul Rahman, a description of Ar-Rahman. But the description of Ar-Rahman is only in one line, and the rest of it is an answer. So it starts off by saying, Qul, Qul is from the word qawala, which means to say, right? To say or to state. Here it's an order, say. The Prophet ﷺ, we see in this surah and in other surah that the mu'adhatain, that the Prophet was asked by the companions, why do you say qul? Why are you saying qul when in other places, if he's told this, that, and the other thing, you don't say qul alhamdulillah, you just say alhamdulillah. And he said, the Prophet ﷺ said, I was told to say, so I said say. So this is why he says qul. Huwa. Huwa is an Arabic word that has two meanings. It means he, and it also means it. Okay? It references the singular, human, or non-human, masculine. Okay? So, this is another proof the ulama say that Allah is not more than one. Because when you want to say more than one, let's say you say here. But you said huwa, it denotes singularity. Okay? Qul huwa Allahu, and Allah is, we say the one God. That's one way you can translate it. The object of worship, or the rightful object of worship. Do I have some questions? Somebody said something? Okay. So, the rightful object of worship. It is also the name of Allah. The name of God, if you would. Okay? So it says, Qul, say that He, Allah, Ahad. Ahad. And Ahad here, it means, some people say witr. In English, we wouldn't really understand that. So in English, we would say single, singular. Not having a partner, not having a pair, or anything similar to it to compare it. It is so unique, being so unique as not to have any words or anything from your mind that you can bring as a similarity to compare it with, to understand what ahad is. That's what ahad means in this context right here. But the ulama don't stop here. They say, okay, it's this surah, it says ahad. If someone were to say, and everyone's going to say, well, what does ahad mean? Okay, you say that He, Allah, is ahad. What does ahad mean? Can you get this for me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do we have any more of those tissues?
Behind the window.
Okay, here. This is better. So it goes on to say, what is ahad? What does ahad mean? So it says, Allahu as-samad. So they went on to say that this sentence, Allahu samad, is a response to ahad. If you don't know what ahad means, then Allahu samad is like atful bayan. It's clarifying what the first one. For example, if I say, excuse me. If I say, I saw your brother, Muhammad. See, the statement Muhammad clarifies which brother I saw. Does that make sense? So likewise, say Allahu Ahad, Allahu Samad. So Samad clarifies what Ahad is supposed to mean. A Samad has a few meanings. A Samad means the one whom all go to for the fulfillment of their needs. And then they go on to say the all gracious one. Because you're not going to go to someone except that you know this person is giving. You're not going to go to someone unless you know that person has the ability to give and is open to give. You're not going to go to someone who's known to be cheap, someone who's known to be severe and not giving. You're going to go to someone who you know has it and doesn't mind giving it to you. So as-Samad is the one whom all go to for the fulfillment of their needs. Anything they need, they go to him. They call it as-Sayyid, the completeness in being the Sayyid. And the Sayyid in English, they don't really have a word. They call it the Godfather. There are no real words to describe it, except for, I try to by saying the one who has everything to give and is willing to give it, yet at the same time needs nothing from anyone or anything to fulfill those needs for yourselves and nothing needed for himself. So he's Ghani. But if you don't understand that, the next ayah explains this ayah. Each ayah afterward is an explanation of the first one, the previous one, I should say. Yeah, sure. Do you have any questions about this? No, I don't have any questions. Okay, then I'm going to ask you guys about things if you don't have any questions. The word Samad also, I lost my mind for a second. A Samad also means the one who is not hollow. That is, one is not hollow. You know, they have the hadith where the shaitan Iblis, when he heard that Allah was making Adam, he saw Adam laying there and he went through Adam. He found out that Adam was hollow. This is a famous narration. And he said that this thing is nothing, because we are hollow. This thing is nothing. And Allah, as-Samad. He said Allah is solid. It's not hollow in this way. He mentions that hadith. He mentions Allahu Samad. So that's another definition of the word as-Samad. But the one that is really pressing on us is that Allah is the all-giving, the one that everyone goes to. So it says, Lam yalid, walam yulad. Okay? This is a famous line. Lam means did not happen. Okay? So we're going to get into a thing. Did not happen, yalid. Ya in front of the word means he. Okay? So this would mean he. And from the rest of it would be from walada. It was not that he was born. Okay? Or give birth. Give birth, I should say. Give birth. He did not give birth, and did not happen that he was born. Was born. Okay? So he begets not, and nor does he be begotten. You know, he was not given birth by anything, and nor was he born of anything. Didn't give birth and wasn't born. Why is that important to understand? Why is this consistently important? Because when you talk about ahad, remember, we're defining the word ahad. All this is the definition of the word ahad. Unique. So unique as not having anything similar to it. Why? Because if you gave birth to something, that thing that you gave birth to is part of you. It is part of you. It also inherits. But we're talking about here, it's a part of you. Your children are part of you. They inherit your characteristics, your blood. They inherit something. Allah is so unique. There is nothing like him. There's no second. There's no partner. There's no third. There's nothing like Allah. Right? So it doesn't have anything that he's given birth to. And nor was he born of something. Because if you're born of something, you're a piece of something else. You're a piece of your parents. So again, this right here denotes the uniqueness and the singularity of Allah with regards to the rest, because all the rest of us and everything that we can see. And there's an interesting point about mankind. Mankind cannot imagine anything that he hasn't seen. The mind of the human cannot go outside of what it has seen with its own eyes. Anything that you bring to your memory is a combination of things you've already seen and put together in different shapes and forms. But you do not invent or create. any thoughts in this regard. So everything that we see, everything that we know is given birth and was given birth to. Even the plants and the flowers, everything that we see comes from something else. Okay? And is recreated daily. And Allah is not like that. وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٌ. وَلَمْ, sorry. يَكُنْ لَهُ, no, leave that up there. أحد. Okay. Here again we have walam, and did not happen, right? And it happens before the word. So, and what is and? Yakun. Yakun has to be understood. It's from the word kawana, which means to be. In this tense, it is. It is, or it be, or so we say is in the present tense. It is. So it did not. There is not. So did not happen and it is together. Lam yakun would be there is not. Do you understand how that goes? We put that together now. Lam yakun from there is or it is. Lam yakun means there is not. Well, lam yakun lahu, and this who goes back to the akhiri madhkur. It goes back to the last thing mentioned, which is Allah. And there is not for Allah, okay, lahu, for Allah, kufuwan or kufu'an. Either way you can say this. You say kufuwan or you say kufu'an. In Warsh we say kufu'an, and in Hafs we say kufu, what is it? Kufuwan? Is it with Dhamma? Kufuwan? Kufuwan or kufuwan? Kufuwan. Okay, so with Hafs you say kufuwan, ahad. Okay, but the word is kaf. Okay, like that. And what does it mean? It's a very comprehensive word that denotes suitability, compatibility, equality, the ability. For example, in fiqh, we say kufu'a. You don't marry a lady unless, you cannot marry a lady unless you're kufuwan laha, unless you're suitable for her. For example, if you're a person who is from a certain lifestyle and this lady is from a greater lifestyle, you may not be able to marry her because you cannot take a lady from her father's house and put her into a worse situation than she had in her father's house. You have to be suitable and compatible for her. You understand that? You have the statement of Sukaina bintu Hussein ibn Ali. Sukaina bintu Hussein ibn Ali. Very famous woman. I'm looking at the Sheikh of here, Sirah. Sukaina was the daughter of Hussein, and Hussein is the son of Ali. They killed her husband, Al-Hajjaj and Abdul Malik ibn Marwan. They killed her husband, okay? And he was a Zubairi. And they asked her to come in to the room and they wanted to talk to her and everything. And then Hajjaj sought to marry her. You know? So she said, Atara nafsaka kufuwan li ya Hajjaj ya Thaqafi? She says this to him. She says, do you see yourself suitable, equal to me to be married? Ana bintul Hussein wa huwa ibnul Ali wa anta Thaqafi. I'm the daughter of Hussein and he's the son of Ali. Dhaka jaddi wa huwa abi. She said, that one's my grandfather and this one's my father. And you're a Thaqafi. Do you know what it means to be called a Thaqafi? A Thaqafi, in the time of the Tabi'een, you were from the hood. You were from the ghetto. Okay? You were from the worst area possibly. Why? Because the Thaqaf people treated the Prophet the worst. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. These are the ones that set their children out after him and threw rocks and bloodied him up. They gave him the worst greeting that anybody could give. And so even though Abu Huraira came from those people, these people were considered, you guys are terrible. You understand that? So she said, you consider yourself a Thaqafi, Kufuwan, equal and compatible to me? bint Hussein bint Ibn Ali? No, she don't think so. She said, I'll go face the chop man first. You know? So that was her mawqif, her standing. So I'd say that to try to give us some understanding of the word, not yet. The word kufu, kufwan, to be equal, compatible. It's very comprehensive. It doesn't mean from one angle. It's from all angles that you can take this compatibility, comparison, suitability. So when you say, وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ, and there is not for Allah, kufuwan, something that is compatible to Allah, that you can compare to Allah, that can stand in the position and do what Allah does from any angle. Do you understand that right there? This again denotes the uniqueness. Then it says ahad. Ahad here has a different meaning than the word unique. When the word ahad is used singularly, it is only used for Allah. Other than that, the word ahad is used umuman, generally, to mean each and every, anybody you know. If you say near one of you, for example, the Prophet ﷺ said, La yu'minu ahadukum. None of y'all, not near one of y'all believe. Right? No, he said, La yu'minu ahadukum. Near nobody. But the word ahad is not used by itself. It's used in conjunction with everybody else. When it says kufuwan ahad, there's not anybody, anyone, anywhere that can be kufuwan lillahi ta'ala. And the ulama say here that the answer to this is laysa kamithlihi shay'un. There is nothing to be compared like or similar to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْبَصِيرُ. So this again just denotes the uniqueness of Allah. You have to understand when you say ahad, if you say ahad in reference to Allah, then it means unique, singular, having no way, shape or form or anything that could be kufuwan lah, similar to it. But when you say ahad in reference to everybody, it means nobody, anyone you name. It's similar, like when we say in Arabic, you say Allahu Akbar. You say Allahu Akbar. What does Allahu Akbar mean? No, it doesn't mean the greatest.
Exalted?
No, it says Allahu Akbar. What does it mean? It means greater. That's what it literally means. Allah is greater. Okay? But you would say, well, Akbaru min mada? Akbaru min ay shay. Min ay. You don't have to say anything else. Because in Arabic, by leaving it like this, Allahu Akbar, it means anything else you put there. This statement still stands as it is. Allahu Akbar. Did you understand that? So the same thing we say, kufuwan ahad. Anyone you name. Any name or singular person you come up with, this is considered, kufu. No one can be, there's not going to be for Allah a kufuwan. So the ulama, another point they mentioned about this surah, just as a point for familiarity, just to get you familiar with the surah, is that the first line ends with ahad and the last line ends with ahad. But the meanings of the ahad is contrasting. The first line is Qul huwallahu, and the last line is walam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. You see that? But the meanings are different from each one. The first one is Allahu ahad, he's unique and singular. And the last one, kufuwan ahad, anyone you name, nothing and no one is kufuwan lillahi ta'ala. It's going to be equal or compatible or can be considered in the position that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has. Do I have any questions at this time? Sure, go ahead.
In the poem,
I'm sorry, say again?
in the poem,
Right?
the statement that says 1/3 of
1/3 Quran, it's equally. Right.
does it mean that if you read once the Surat Al-Ikhlaas, then you get the reward of reading 1/3 of the Quran?
His question is, it says in the poem, 1/3 Quran, it's equally. Are we to understand from that that if you recite Surah Al-Ikhlaas, it's as if you've read and you get the reward of 1/3 of reading the Quran, 1/3 of the Quran? Such a question? The Prophet ﷺ says in Sahih Al-Bukhari, he was with his companions one day and he said, which one of y'all can recite 1/3 of the Quran in a single night, in one night? Understanding how difficult it is to recite 1/3 of the Quran in one night, they said, which one of us can do? Who can do that, Ya Rasulullah? Which one of us can do that, Ya Rasulullah? The Prophet ﷺ said, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدْ لَتَعْدِلُ ثُلُثُ الْقُرْآنِ. He said, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, that قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدْ, meaning this surah, is equivalent to 1/3 of the Quran. So yes, if you recite this surah, it is as if you have recited 1/3 of the Quran. Look at the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we see that the Prophet Aisha radiallahu anha, she narrates, again, this is another narration in Sahih Al-Bukhari, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we already went over this narration in the previous lessons, that every night he used to recite this surah along with the قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَاقِ وَقُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ, and blow in his hands, spit in his hands without a lot of spit, and wipe over his whole body, right? So this shows that it has medicinal factors and curative factors in this surah also. So this surah has a lot. It is a very, very blessed surah. Does that answer your question? Do I have any other questions? Yes. I'm sorry.
Reading about one of the Sahaba that used to recite it in the surah.
There was a Sahabi, radiallahu anhu, who was reciting this surah in every salah, and he wouldn't recite any other surah before he would recite this one. He would end it with reciting this one. And the companions complained about that, and they took it to the Prophet. And he told them, then get somebody else to recite. And they didn't want to get anybody to recite. Look at the Sahaba. They didn't want to get anybody else to recite because he was the one that knew more Quran. And the rule amongst the people is whoever knows most Quran should lead the salah. So they took it to the Prophet and they mentioned it to the Prophet ﷺ. And the Prophet ﷺ went to the man and said, what's preventing you from doing what your companions wanted you to do, reciting from some other surah and not doing this one? And he said, because I love it. I love this surah. Okay? And he mentioned, I think in another narration, that it's a sifatul Rahman, that it's describing Ar-Rahman, and I like to describe Ar-Rahman, and I guess I love this surah. And so the Prophet ﷺ said that your love for it has, entered you into Jannah. Okay, or kama qala sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Or was it another one that says, tell him that Allah loves him or something like that. But I forget. Right, he says, your love for it has entered you into Jannah. And then another narration, he said, tell him that his love for it has entered him into Jannah. It's a well-known, famous hadith. Yes. Does that answer your question?
But this also, when Allah says that, though he begets not, he does not begot, nor he begets not. As you see, like you said before, about where the Jews say that they're Ozer, and Christians say that Jesus. And then before that, we know that they were sons, in religions before that, you had Mithra, you had Osiris, you had all these different, where God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is expressing his uniqueness, that does not beget or begotten, and that he is one. That he does not beget, addressing those Christians, the Jews, Persians, and all those others who had those ideas that God had sons, their son Hercules, and all these things, sons to God, that he is one. That's not, does he address that? Is that also, I'm just...
Well, Allah, in this surah, from the Tafsir, the different Tafsir, the Tafsir, as Shawkani said, Tafsir comes down in the words of the Quran and it's not restricted to the asbab al-nuzul, the reason why it was revealed. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala deals with these situations in other places in the Quran. It says, وَقَالُوا اتَّخَذَ اللَّهُ وَلَدًا. It says, and they say that, that Allah has taken a son. They've come with something, azim. The heavens and the earth are about to fall from what they're saying. So other places in the Quran, Allah mentions, the deviant statements, about them saying, وَقَالُوا اتَّخَذَ اللَّهُ وَلَدًا. Lots of different places. What does it say in Surah Al-Kahf? I forget the actual ayah, but it mentions in a few places in the Quran about them taking sons, and Allah addresses them there. Here it's not restricted to not meaning that, but it makes it clear that Allah does not take sons, and He wasn't born, and that this is a fallacious statement to
It
her.
also be said that these sons, that if you say he has a son, that there was some type of divinity also.
Of course, that's what
So
the
also
claim.
shuts that out and takes it.
Right. I mean, it's pretty clear, for the Muslim, I wasn't gearing this conversation for those people who believe in that, those Christian type people. But for the Muslim, it shouldn't be a difficult thing to understand that Allah doesn't have any sons and He didn't take any sons. Maybe for the Christians, that's something that's new for them to understand. But for the Muslim, this is something that is part and parcel of our belief system. We know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has no sons and is not the son of anyone. Okay? Yes, sir.
I thought that the hadith, the Sahaba was in the time when he was reciting as far as I remember, only Qul Huwallah.
No, there's another narration. His statement is that he remembered a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ's companion was just reciting Qul Huwallahu Ahad. I think maybe you stepped out. I mentioned that hadith also.
When they asked him, he says, because I was thinking it was the most needed at the time.
Well, no, I don't think it says that in the Arabic at all. Maybe somebody translated that erroneously, but it doesn't. I checked them all. I have them all written right here if you want to see them. But it's no, that's incorrect. No,
He said that he would recite Qul Huwallahu Ahad and then another surah.
Okay, let me just make, the brother made a statement about a hadith, and the hadith that he mentioned was incorrect. Just in some of the language. And the thing about it, there are a few narrations. There are a few narrations where the Prophet ﷺ mentions the love for this surah and how certain Sahaba, there was one Sahaba who was reciting it over and over, and someone saw him doing that, thinking that that was a belittling thing. He mentioned it to the Prophet, and the Prophet ﷺ said, I swear by the one in whose hand is my soul, it's equal to a third of the Quran. And then another narration where the one who was leading them in salah, and he was starting off with that surah and then adding some other surah to it, and the companions asked him to change that, and he didn't do it. And there's two narrations with regards to that. There are different narrations. Our thing is not to get tied around an axle about any of these things like that. The important thing is to understand that this surah is 1/3 of the Quran, that if you love this surah, that the Prophet ﷺ said to that Sahabi, your love for this surah has entered you into paradise. Okay, I specifically didn't want to mention that surah, because that hadith, because there's ikhtilaf about the understanding of that hadith, whether that was for that particular Sahabi or it's for everyone after them. Okay, so there's some issue. I only mentioned it now because someone brought it up a little while ago, and so I think you brought it up, so we were going to say that. But the important thing here is that not to get into a whole bunch of going back and forth about the actual language. The sad thing is that a lot of people are reading things in English and expounding upon that. Don't do that. Memorize the hadith in Arabic. Learn what those words mean. Then don't just learn the hadith, because the ulama say that the hadith lead everybody astray. What I say? The hadith lead everybody astray, except for the people of fiqh and the muhaddithun. Okay? So you have to go to someone who's a faqih. You have to go to somebody who's a muhaddith, and they'll tell you what that hadith means. Okay? Don't just take the hadith. We are people, you have to have, what we were speaking about earlier, the prerequisites necessary to expound upon these hadith. And if you're not an expert in the Arabic language, and I mean an expert, not that you speak Arabic, an expert in the grammar, because the ulama say that the argument of the fuqaha is the nahwu and sarf, the grammar and the etymology. That is the argument amongst the fuqaha. If you're not an expert in that, then don't speak about it. The people of usul used to say, if you don't know usul of fiqh, don't talk about fiqh, period. These may sound very harsh, but one of the tricks of the shaitan, Allah says in the Quran, that it says, وَأَن تَقُولُ عَلَى اللَّهِ مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ, and that you say about Allah what you don't know. This is one of the tricks. So it's best to say, nothing, than to say something that you are not well prepared to know. Okay? And I'm just saying that to the students, you guys, just as a point of reference, inshallah ta'ala. Yes?
So So is there any other surah greater than 1/3 of the Quran?
At this point, I don't know. I don't remember right off the top of my head. I don't think so. I don't know. Yes?
Do you have an opinion as to whether it applies to the rest of the Muslims or just that one Sahaba?
No, I don't have an opinion about that at all. I don't know. I read the different statements, and I don't think I'm. That's why I didn't mention this the hadith, I should say, because I don't know. I don't know.
No reason to believe that it would apply to.
No, that would be taking an opinion. That, I don't know. Maybe the sheikh, he
Based on just the hadith alone, the language of the hadith.
I don't know. I don't know. I personally don't worry about those types of things. Personally, I don't worry about those because there's a lot of times people try to get into Jannah through the back door. Okay? There's, and there's a lot more clearer ways of getting into the paradise. Go make Hajj. Okay? Pray your salawat, your khamsa. Make a lot of money so you can pay zakat. Marry a lot of women and have a lot of children. Inshallah ta'ala. If you have a lot of daughters and you be patient with them, then, there's lots of ways. Maybe I get you in trouble with the marry a lot of women part. Do I have any more questions about that? If I don't have any more questions, I plead, next week you will have a test. Next week, every week from now on, we're going to start off and you have to memorize. If you're not memorized, I'm not going to ask you to leave. I would like you to leave, but, I'm not going to ask you to leave. Why? Because, and the only reason I want you to leave is just to teach you a lesson. Just teach you a lesson. One time, and I'm going to be quick and say this and go. One time when we were living in Mauritania, the Sheikh Mohammed Salim Abdud, he's a famous sheikh out there, old man. He's one of the senior scholars on the senior FIKS council in Mecca, and he lives in the desert. Okay? And he follows the camels where they go, and we live in tents in that environment. There were a few Westerners there. So his wife, she's an elder lady too, she was making, and we're building from fire outside. We're building from a fire. Anybody knows, in West Africa, you have more of a beautiful life, outdoor life. So we're eating from outside fire and booba tanks and stuff like that. She was making the dinner for the Westerners, okay, from her own hand, from her own money, her making the rice, and we have this stuff called mutagauda and stuff like that. And some of the Westerners, a lot of them actually, were taking the food and tossing it into the dirt because they were not accustomed to the coarseness of the meal, okay? Because it's a little bit of water, a lot of oil, the rice. If you eat chebjan, or mafi or something like that, it's better when you get it from the Africans, but when the Arabs make it, it's not as good, from them. But she was doing the best she could. And when she noticed that, and this has a lot of harm too, because when you put meat into the ground, the animals come and eat that. If the animals eat meat, they get sick. You can't eat those animals. Okay, those animals that eat meat. You're supposed to lay it out, pick the meat out and stuff like that. But anyway, they were doing this, and she realized it, and she started to cry. She got very upset that she's spending her own money trying to give to the people, and they're not appreciating it. So the sheikh came out to us one day, and he gave us a lesson on gratitude, just being grateful and gracious to what we get, and learning how to accept and being patient with the coarseness of your teachers and dealing with that. If it is that you truly come to learn, and I say the same thing to you guys here, be patient with some of the coarseness that I have myself. It's not for any other reason except for that the sincere desire to get you guys to learn and know that I can't force you to learn. You have to force yourself to learn. Okay? And there's never a big thing about being too old or being too busy. Okay? It's never such a thing like that. It's a thing of desire. We met some people out there who had desire to learn. And if you have the desire, you will get it. If you don't have the desire, then you will not get it. أقول قولي هذا استغفر الله لي ولكم السلام عليكم